also because I do think there has been kind of a democratization on what good means, right? That the gatekeepers have changed, and there's not, with the revelation that there are many different kinds of audiences, there are many different kinds of good. So there's the good that meets the critics, and that could be very different from the good that brings in audiences. And so there's more opportunity to be good in the way that is important to you. Now, having platforms that support all those different kinds of good can be challenging.
Mm-hmm. Do you worry at all that people are going to be less willing to take risks or more likely to make safe bets and do less of the stuff, the good that you care about?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And so how is that changing your strategy?
I mean, it's tough. They are risk adverse. So I think, as one of our agents said to us the other day on the phone, he was like, you got to go straight down the middle and hit the ball out of the park. Like, you just have to strategize with each other, with our team, with our agents, with everyone to figure out how can we package something that's going to be able to go straight down the middle and hit it out of the park. Because right now, people are going to be more adverse. We'll look at our slate, and while something was amazing 3 years ago and felt like we were going to be able to get it made, we have to figure out how to build off of that today. How can we make it feel more desirable? How can we make it feel more undeniable? Just being more strategic in today's world, because people are not willing to take risks. They're just not.
But I will say, straight down the middle, it's important that, because it's important to clarify that straight down the middle doesn't mean bland. No. It doesn't mean for the most common denominator. It doesn't mean trying to make something for everybody, something that doesn't have edges or specificity. Straight down the middle almost means the opposite in this moment, right? It means so strategic, so specific, so clear. So I think one of the kind of unexpected, wonderful impacts of how challenging the ecosystem has become is that we have had to make sure that we are more committed to content than we've ever been before. Because the fight is so real that if we jump onto something or we develop something, we have no choice but to have to love it. Love it, love it, love it. Because if you're not willing to get in the ring and fight for it with everything you have, then don't even bother, right? So it's really forced us to kind of prioritize, to be more clear with each other, more transparent with each other, more honest with ourselves about what we really, truly care about.
So speaking of loving it, Scandal ran on ABC for 7 seasons, right? You were the first Black woman to play a leading role in a network drama in 40 years, right? Yeah. Olivia Pope is still an icon.
Yeah.
But 7 seasons is a really long time now, right?
Yeah, I mean...
Do you think Scandal could happen today?
No. No.
People are 100% so devastated.
No. I'll tell you, for so many reasons. First of all, there hadn't been a Black woman as the lead of a network drama in almost 40 years. I was in my early 30s at the time, so it hadn't happened in my lifetime. I hadn't seen it. And everybody called it a risk. The studio thought it was a risk. The network thought it was a risk. Everybody was proud of ABC Disney for taking this risk. We've talked about how the environment right now is so risk averse. So I don't know that it would have been greenlit with me, with a Black woman at the center. And it wasn't the first idea. I mean, Shonda Rhimes has talked about this publicly. When they first read the script, the executives were like, this is a great role for Connie Britton. And I love Connie. You guys be nice. I love Connie, but the show was inspired by a real woman named Judy Smith, who is a Black woman. If it hadn't been inspired by a real woman who is a Black woman, then everybody would have said, let's make her white. They didn't have the option to say that, right? The other reason I don't think Scandal would have happened is because we have an amazing show, super proud of, called Unprisoned. It went 2, thank you. There went 2 seasons.
Some video of that as well.
Went 2 seasons on Hulu as part of Onyx Collective. Unfortunately, we're not getting a 3rd season. Thanks. They've made that decision based on 2 seasons, which is 20 episodes? 16 episodes. That is less than 1 season of Scandal. The first season was a mid-season replacement, but we got extended, and we were on the bubble until the end of our 2nd season. So it took us close to 40 episodes before people thought, okay, this show's it's going to work out. Another season before we were really a global hit. So shows are getting canceled before they even had a runway in the past.
And is that disappointing? Did you campaign them to change their minds?
We did.
How does that feel?
We did. It's hard. I mean, you know, it's also hard because the landscape is so rich with opportunity. There's so much stuff to watch, and we feel like there could have been some different choices made around launch and how the show was put into the world. But you also have to know that, like in any business, right, like, you got to collect your nose. Not everything's going to be scandal. Not everything's going to hit in the exact same way. We've had extraordinary successes, and we're just going to keep moving. We have another show that's part of Onyx Collective on Hulu right now, Reasonable Doubt, and that show is doing just great. So, you know, part of it is, again, you know, like any other business, we diversify our content. The shows are very different. They have some similar themes, which is great, but, you know, we just get back to work. I mean, Pilar always talks about head down, just get to work.
So let's talk about that, because you started Simpson Street with this mission to inspire real change, to inspire uncomfortable conversations, and get us all to face these emotional truths.
So that's not true.
Okay. Correct me, please.
So I would not say that we founded Simpson Street to inspire change. When I founded Simpson Street, our first project was Confirmation, which was a film for HBO inspired by the Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill hearings. The inspiration wasn't to create change. It was to center stories that don't get centered. It was to shift perspective and to increase our capacity for compassion. So I think we still, I think we still really work at sitting at the intersection of what makes each of us truly unique individual, that every single one of us has a specific story that is to us, but we sit at the intersection of what makes us different and what makes us the same. Because as different as we are, we're all in the same human story of we want to belong, we want to love, we're afraid, we're needy, we have desires, we have longings. We're all living the same human journey in lots of different containers. So that's what we do. It's not about wanting to change people or feeling like the world needs to be a better place. Unfortunately, because of a lot of the content that we create is focused on centering marginalized voices, because we want to focus on the specificity of what makes us different. So we don't want to tell the same story again and again. We're like bringing stories from the corners into the center. That gets interpreted as political. When you put a woman at the center, people call it political. When you put a person of color at the center, people call it political. When you put a person who's differently able-bodied, people call it political. But it's not political, it's just human.
So
I'm sorry, you had a question.
No, well, you answered my question. You know, how do you, this is a business at the end of the day.
Yes.
How do you protect your creative and cultural and, you know, human aspirations from the business expectations and the performance expectations?
It's a great question.
You go.
Me?
Yeah.
I feel like a big part of it is our partnership.
Yes.
Because we come at this from different lenses, from different trajectories. Pilar kind of came up through behind the scenes production. She thinks about the business of show in a different way. And I came up obviously as a creative, as an artist. And I've always been an artist who's been really interested in production in the business. And she's always been a production business person who's very committed to artistry. So it's a really wonderful partnership. And when I think we're always thinking about that balance, like we don't want to be making like skits in a black box theater for audiences of two. Like that's not a business model. But we do want to challenge ourselves to go beyond mandates to create something innovative, creative, and spectacular.
Well, Daughters on Netflix is, I will say, spectacular. Honestly, if you have, it's you kind of know it's going to be a hard watch, and if you have an hour and a half, like, watch this movie. It is mindset changing, and this little girl Aubrey, she's just captured my heart, and I'm trying to follow her all over social media. Like, where's Aubrey now?
Yeah.
How do you decide what to throw your weight behind? Because I'm sure that there are, just like we're having uncomfortable conversations in our world, you must be also having those conversations internally when you're trying to figure out what are we really going to throw our weight behind if we only have one shot?
This one was an easy one, honestly. It was sent to us, and we all watched it, and it was pretty much a yes. We feel like we could help this movie. We feel like we can help these filmmakers. Having Kerry behind it, going to Sundance, putting it out into the world with her voice and everything that she can talk about and talk to these little girls felt like truly a no-brainer for us. And we were really, really grateful that they sent it to us. And I think now we're happy to be included into that party and be in business with them and get this story out there. So this was like,
agreed.
It was just an easy no-brainer. We said yes right away to this.
It's a really special film for anybody who hasn't seen it. It's about a very special program for fathers who are incarcerated, where they go through a parenthood training process, as you can see on screen. And at the end of it, they have a father-daughter dance where they get to take off their prison jumpsuits and put on suits. And the daughters take them out and they get their dresses and they get their hair did. And there's a DJ and there's food, and they really, for those hours, they are not prisoners, they are dads. And the rates of recidivism have been transformed completely. So many dads who go through the program say, I now know why I'm staying out. I understand what I'm living for. It's transformed families. It's a really, really special program. So it's interesting because part of the reason why it was sent to us was because of Unprisoned. Because I played a character, Paige, whose dad was in and out of prison her whole life. And so our understanding of this issue was immediate. And they knew that how close we were to this topic and to the way that the so-called justice system impacts families.
Daughters is on Netflix. Your other series are on Hulu. Obviously, you have a long relationship with ABC. What's the difference between working with a Netflix or a Hulu or an HBO and a traditional network? Because obviously, the center of power has shifted towards streaming.
Yeah, I mean, are there traditional networks anymore? Even when it comes to Hulu, a lot of times people are watching something that aired immediately on ABC, they're watching it on Hulu the next day, right? Like that platform has become it's same with, it used to be with Paramount. But so the ecosystem has completely been transformed. And I think it's very hard anymore to say I'm making something for a network or for a streamer. It's all become one thing.
And is there a difference between the streamers?
Oh, yeah.
And how would you describe the differences?
But I would also add,
that's good.
Called
Pivot.
partnership.
I think
Pilar,
it's a great question for writers to talk about the difference between networks and streamers, because I do think for us as non-writing EPs, we have a specific job to help these showrunners foster their stories, get it sold, casting, all of those things. I think as a writer, when you are writing for broadcast or you're writing for Netflix or a Hulu, it's the tone, the notes, all of that is very, very different. So I think that's a better question for a writer who's in it with there are certain writers who are fantastic at network. There are certain writers that can't do it. It's a science, and we've tried it. We've made a bunch of pilots for ABC. We were unsuccessful with them, but we learned so much.
Whereas we've had a string of successes on Hulu, you know, from Little Fires to Reasonable Doubt, yay. So it's really they are different.
It's different. It really is, and I shy away from broadcast, to be honest with you. I mean, people will call us all the time and say, we have a broadcast idea. And I'm like, it's not really for us. Like, it's not necessarily our strong suit. Now, if Yvette Lee Bowser calls me and says, Pilar, I have an idea, I want to take it to ABC, I would go do that with her. Because
she knows how to do it.
She knows how to do it. Unfortunately, if a writer who doesn't have that much experience, I don't think that we can be best served to that. I don't think we can serve them the best. I think there's other producers out there that are better at that than we are.
And, I should ask it this way, as creators, do you have a hope? Oh, I hope this goes to Netflix. I hope this lands on Hulu. I hope this is an HBO.
No, it's
You're
not
just like, I just want this out there.
Neither. It's about finding the right fit. I want to put content in the place where content is going to thrive best. And so different material resonates with different executives in different ways. So it's always for us about figuring out what the right fit is, what the right match is. There are projects that would really thrive in a Netflix that are not going to do so well at Hulu. So you want to get to the place that is going to have your back and where you can fulfill their mandate, right? So that you're both growing and being pleased.
There's been a lot of coverage about, women-founded production companies. Reese Witherspoon, I was just talking to her at China Way last weekend. She mentioned you. Obviously, there's Nicole Kidman. I've seen some reporting that indicates, things are so much better now. There are more roles for women. There are more roles for middle-aged women. I cover tech, and sometimes in tech, more recently, it feels like things are moving backwards. In Hollywood, what direction do you feel like you're moving in?
Yes. Like both. I mean, I think there's been extraordinary progress. I say to Pilar all the time, I'm so happy that I was born now and not born, I think I've always imagined a great SNL skit, because white people say to each other all the time, like, what year would you love to live in if it wasn't now? Like, you don't ask a black person, there's no other time I want to live, thank you very much. Like, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40, no, the answer is no, right? So I think it's similar for women, like not really excited about living in any time other than now, as a woman either. But that doesn't mean we don't have to do more. Right? There has been enormous progress. But there is also some backsliding. When we talk about being risk averse and we talk about a constriction, if the people who are greenlighting and making the most important decisions are not like me, then that constriction may leave me on the outside. So yes. So I think there has been enormous progress, and I think we still have a lot of work to do.
How do you think about, I don't want to say new formats, but obviously now so much is happening on social media, and you've really embraced social media on YouTube. How do you think about opportunities in formats beyond now the center of gravity is with streaming, but like what's next? There's, so much is happening on TikTok and shorts, and, what direction do you think this is going in?
I think you have to embrace all of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have our great digital series, The Street You Grew Up On, which Kerry hosts, which started off in the middle of the pandemic, and Kerry was shooting those with our social media director, Emily, on Zoom. And it has grown, and we've been able to see it grow. We're on our fourth season. And so we have embraced that, right? And it's been fantastic. And they work so hard at putting that together. And Kerry loves it and thrives on it. But the way that we've done that has shifted, right? It started off in the pandemic, and now we have brand partnerships, and we're trying to figure out how we can make it grow. So you have to embrace everything that's coming at us, while also keeping your eye on not traditional, but streaming and all of that. You have to branch out. You have to be open. You have to, we have some unscripted series where we're trying to figure out where it can live. And so it's like, who is this person? Who's the lead of it? Who are their brand partnerships? How can we figure out how to get something made financially with them as well? And where can it live?
Lucas,
If you haven't watched Street You Grew Up On, you should watch it. It's great. It's on YouTube. It's really fun. Season 4 coming soon.
Thank you. Lucas has tried to go there a few times on politics, and no one has really taken it. Kerry, you have gone there. You have been going there on social media. You were knocking on doors in Arizona this weekend. You made a huge appearance at the DNC. We have less than 30 days to go. It's go time. What is your message to the audience?
I'll just say what I keep asking myself. I keep reminding myself that I do not want to wake up in a month and wonder what else I could have done. And it's not a game. I think so many of us feel like the democratic process is somebody else's responsibility and somebody else's job. And I know how busy we all are, and that we are all managing multiple priorities, and we have shareholders, and we have board members, and we have bosses. But a democracy is a government by the people, for the people, and we are the people. So if we don't step up, we are literally handing our power over. And in this room in particular, like, one thing I'm always trying to convey to voters is every politician has a job is getting paid by you. Like, their salary is paid by our tax dollars. So to not hold them accountable and be part of the decision-making process of who has that job and who doesn't is really being a poor manager. And so one place we all need to be focused on practicing our business and management skills right now is in democracy.
When you were, thank you, yeah. When you were knocking on doors this weekend, what surprised you most?
I think what is most inspiring is, it was 108 degrees in Arizona. And there are grassroots organizers who have been doing this work on the ground and for years. Campaigns come into community every 4 years and they say, like, vote for this candidate. And sometimes communities say, like, why? I only see you every 4 years. And so now there have been, not now, for a long time, there have been these grassroots organizations all over the country. In Arizona, it's groups like Poder in Action and Lucha, and they are on the ground 365 days of the year, every single year. They don't wait for candidates. They're campaigning on issues. They're connected to the community to figure out what the community needs, and they're empowering those communities to vote on their values. And that's what I think is so inspiring, because it's not about hero worship. It's not about one person who's going to save us all. It really is about the day-to-day participation and making sure that our most powerful people, our leaders, hear us and see us and know us and are representing us, not just their own best interests.
All right. Eras has been a theme for all of us our last year. What is the next era of Simpson Street? What is the next era of Kerry Washington?
Oh, God.
I think, what comes to mind? Anything?
No.
I think the next era for Simpson Street is bold. It's bold. And for me, it's peace.
I love that. We will be looking out for your bold and peaceful and good stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Kerry Washington and Pilar Savone.
Great.
We will go where our artists want to go creatively, while protecting their rights at every step.
Please welcome to the stage Rob Stringer, chairman of Sony Music Group, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Lucas Shaw.
Okay.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm here, Lucas. I'm here.
Thanks for coming.
Great.
You were in LA. The timing of this worked out in part because you were in LA for a Sony corporate event, and I'm curious. The record industry for the last decade has been on kind of a rocket ship fueled by streaming growth after, in many ways, being left for dead. That growth has started to plateau a bit. When you're talking to the folks from Tokyo, what do you say is the engine for the business going forward? What are you most excited about that is going to make the business grow in the next 5 years?
Well, I try to tell the truth mostly. That would be helpful. I mean, they kind of know because it's such a constant dialogue. But I mean, we've had 5 years of consecutive growth from streaming. We've had 10 years of consecutive growth from the company. But the challenges are always what's next. I mean, we are at a crossroads at the moment. We have AI, which I'm sure you're going to talk to me about, and we have other challenges of just constantly looking how the business moves on. But we're not a new company. We've been around a while, so we've weathered plenty of storms in the past, and whatever comes hitting our way next, I think we'll probably figure it out.
What of those new things do you consider the biggest opportunity or the biggest threat?
Well, I think the threat is that the disruption from the next chapter of tech causes something that happens that doesn't, to my mind, benefit the art. I mean, my view of where my background and where I come from was art first, business and tech was involved in that second. So if I look at the next chapter, I care about what happens with the art. The tech, I mean, I've been at the company a long time. I've been through plenty of different chapters of technological innovation, whether it be cassettes or CDs or downloads or streaming or whatever. So I look at it and say, how is it going to affect the art and how is our positioning going to be? Because at the end of the day, I look after a 125-year-old company, really. And to my mind, it's like a modern art museum. And we have amazing paintings from the past in there. And I'm always looking to put brand new paintings in there from future geniuses. And so therefore, I'm always concerned with that. Sometimes the tech bothers me more and sometimes it bothers me less.
So I'm curious to that end, which of those technologies do you feel in any way benefited the art, and is there one that you think has detracted from it?
Well, I mean, I would have an unusual position on that because in 2000, post-Napster, generally everybody wrote off the recorded music industry, including the investment community. And I didn't mind that chapter because then I got left alone. And actually, I think out of that period, we started to create better art because the pressure wasn't on from the technology to be the most powerful chapter. And then iTunes came in, and iTunes, to Apple's credit, did have a boutique taste mentality about the store, which meant that I think they understood. I can tell you from that period that the artists that came through were of a very high quality because it was encouraged to be boutique. Now, ironically, this chapter has made us more money times 5 than the iTunes chapter and the post-Napster chapter. But an algorithm tells you what you want, not what you might like. And there's a difference between what you want, because everyone always wants something until they get tired. You like chocolate chip ice cream until you eat 5 tubs of it, and then you don't necessarily like it anymore. But with streaming, the downside is you have incredible penetration, and we have hundreds of millions of people around the world. And so that has been very lucrative as a business. But I also miss the sort of the fuck it up algorithm where you learn about something that you didn't know about.
Right. Instead of getting fed more of what you already...
more of the same. And I think that what you didn't know about and you learn about, certainly when I consider myself, and I think probably the reason I'm here and came to America at a time post-Napster when the industry felt like it was in bad shape, was because musically, growing up with the BBC, they played everything. So I wasn't an R&B guy or a pop guy or an alternative guy or a hip-hop guy. I listened to everything because the BBC had a government mandate to play you every type of music. So I was kind of open to that experience, whereas I think the disadvantage with automated taste is that you end up, as you said, being funneled the same music. And there is no reason why when you're 14 and you love pop music, that when you're 18 you won't love folk music. Or if you're 16 and you love emo music.
I was at dinner with someone Tuesday where he and I are of different generations, but we both grew up loving hip-hop, and we both agreed that most hip-hop right now sucks.
Yeah, I mean, well, I on hip-hop, I think that honestly, that's a different conversation because the industry funneled so much focus, as the industry does, and instead of signing 100 great artists, you sign 1,000 artists, then you're going to dilute that. I think hip-hop is not going anywhere. It's a 50-year-old genre, and it's as powerful as rock music ever was. But the truth is that it will hopefully go underground, come back up again with an incredible type of fusion music that makes a difference. We had that. We signed the Odd Future franchise. That was brand new in hip hop at the time. And did you think that from that Odd Future kind of punk rock hip hop terrorism, you would get Tyler the Creator?
Right.
You know, and the way Tyler is to my mind a Renaissance artist. So I think it will change. But do I think hip hop will have to go underground to come back up again? Yeah, I do. Yeah. And I think that, you know, again, it's the same thing as you said. You know, you get fed if you like, you know, a certain type of genre of hip hop from Atlanta, you fed that till you had enough of it.
Right. Well, and then there's been this development where a lot of the music sounds very similar because they're all catering to a particular playlist or algorithm. To your point, they have the sort of the same target.
Yeah, and I'll give you another example which makes it sort of a little bit more illuminated. When we put the first Harry Styles single coming out of One Direction, Sign of the Times was over 6 minutes long. And we were told that you can't have a 6 minute long song on a playlist because that isn't the way the algorithm works. And I pointed out that Bohemian Rhapsody was 6 minutes long plus, and that was a pretty good record. But that's the kind of thing I came up against. And as it happens, the public one, Sign of the Times, has done 1.5 billion streams now at Spotify. But at the beginning, they did not playlist it.
Yeah.
They've learned their lesson a bit since then. But to my mind, honestly, it sounds cliched, and I work for a corporation, and profit is important, but art comes first.
Right. You brought up Harry. When you have an artist who comes out of a boy band like that, and they're then wanting to be a solo act, how do you position them as their own artist? And then also in his case, correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like the first album did fine. But it was really the second album that sent him to the stratosphere. Like, how do you have patience in that process?
Well, the first album was where he wanted to go and where we talked about him wanting to go, and it was very clear cut as where he wanted to go. And actually, as it happens, the first album has now done great.
Right.
So in retrospect, as with many proper artists, you go backwards and you say, actually, it was all planned. But the first album was a step to go left, not go down the middle, not go right, not more pop, not down the middle and make it easy and go left. And we went left, and that set us up to go back into the center a little bit on the second record. And then the third record was just completely natural and literally the easiest record, one of the easiest records I've ever made, because he had total vision and the experience of the previous two records. So it's always a journey with artists, always a journey. And you don't necessarily think, you don't have to start in the most commercial place to end up being a really super important artist.
Yeah. How would you say, I talked about this a little bit with Scooter earlier, how would you compare the power of the artist right now relative to when you started your career?
Well, we held passport control when I started. I started in 1985, and it was, you know, we controlled manufacturing, we controlled distribution, we controlled radio. You know, we were passport control for artists, so we had a lot more power. And I think probably in the pioneer days of the music industry, we abused that power, and we probably got a lot wrong. But it was pioneering, and now the artists have, at the very least, equal power to us, if not more power to us, because we're part of a overall picture. There's live merch, branding. You know, there's a lot of streams now of the music business that are super lucrative, and we're one strand. And I've been very comfortable with that. I wanted to be the artist partner. I never wanted to be, you know, a cigar-smoking fat cat, particularly. You know, I know it's always cliche. We were talking the other day, it's like, you know, Mike Myers in Bohemian Rhapsody is fantastic, but you know, there's a bit of a cliche about who we are, and you have to kind of work hard not to be that cliche, really.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like both of your peers in the music business, Warner and Universal, have spoken a lot about sort of capturing more of those strings, I guess. You're the recorded music, but there's others. Warner wants to do a super fan app. Universal has made some noise about super fans in their own way. And we just had Kerry up here. One of the big trends, I'd say, across entertainment is sort of these celebrity-driven businesses. Is that are you trying, do you go to a Beyonce, to a Harry, to these, and try to build businesses with them? Or are you content to sit back and just say, we're one leg of the stool, do whatever you want anywhere else?
It's pretty multidimensional. I mean, we have a different path to my two friends and competitors. But because I work for Sony. So the synergy at Sony is multidimensional. I mean, you know, we've had meetings with all our heads of entertainment companies for 2 days, and the conversations are about PlayStation, anime, movies, television, electronics. So at the end of the day, we've always had that. So I actually think that we were first in all those ideas because we have a lot of strands. You know, we're making movies with our picture company. We're doing games with our PlayStation company, and anime, which is obviously one of the biggest growth brands in the world. We're doing tons of stuff with anime now that I wouldn't have necessarily thought 5 years ago. So I think it was organic for our company because we were part of a bigger company in itself. I mean, we are part of a bigger corporation. My counterparts at Warner Music and Universal aren't. We are. So it was in our bloodstream to some degree. And actually, we've concentrated on that much more in the last few years. But we have multitude of different revenue streams and probably 60 to 80 different multi-revenue streams now. So we're pretty dimensional. And look,
I assume the biggest one is still putting out new music.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but there were gold mines for everywhere. You know, if you know, for instance, you know, we have a share of MJ the Musical. You know, MJ the Musical is on. We have a percentage with Michael Jackson estate, as does our picture company, and that is on in 5 places in the world. That's like an act touring times 5. It's on in 5 cities in the world within the next year, and that's quite lucrative.
And unlike with an act touring, you actually get to participate.
Yeah. I mean, we get to participate, which has quite frankly led to a movie which we're making now, which again we own the music rights. So
what is the movie?
It's a Michael Jackson autobiography. So that's them. But the Broadway show has turned into something probably way bigger than we even imagined, and that's a revenue stream that is quite frankly more lucrative than streaming.
Michael Jackson feels his music has survived all of the controversy.
Yeah. I think his music's in the fabric of society. I mean, I think that you can't. It would be impossible. Whatever people's opinions in the audience are about Michael Jackson, you cannot take his music out of the fabric of pop culture. You can't take it out. It's absolutely entwined.
Right. You brought up your 2 friends and competitors and how you're different. Has it been? They both went public recently, and if you talk to people who work at those companies, I don't think they love the experience of being part of a public company. Has it been to your benefit that they both now have sort of quarterly reports and they have to satisfy shareholders? And obviously, you're part of a public company, but it's not the same.
No, it's not the same because when we are a public company, but when we're talked about on the same terms, it's as much about PlayStation or electronics or Sony television. So no, I mean, yes, I mean, would I want to be doing that? Not particularly, doing quarterly earnings. I mean, I'm sure you're aware, Lucas, because it's your job. You're aware of the number of press releases we put out compared to our competitors, considerably less. We frustrate people. We don't even put press releases about the things we do, which I know sometimes is a little bit annoying. So we can
talk about that next.
We can sign huge catalogs and we don't tell anybody officially because, it's not quite the same dynamic. And would I want to be in that position? No, not really. I mean, I think it's tough and I'm friendly with people in the other companies. I've worked with the head of Universal and I've known him for nearly 35 years, so it's a tough gig that, and of the wider entertainment business, how tough it is to be literally reporting back to shareholders and investors
right
every 3 months.
Yeah.
And you do have to talk your company up.
Right.
I'm fortunate that, I do investor analysis meetings twice a year and I contribute to the Sony quarterlies, but I'm left earning a little bit more. I think to be behind the curtain when you're doing my job is not a terrible thing. The artists are in front of the curtain, the talent is in front of the curtain, and I think being behind the curtain is sometimes better.
Right. You brought up the catalog. Mm-hmm. So you did Springsteen deal, you did Queen, didn't announce it, you did Pink Floyd, didn't announce it.
We did Michael Jackson, didn't announce it. I'll just give you a showbiz exclusive.
Sure.
It's all good.
Why are you so active in buying these catalogs? And can you explain? Because these numbers are huge. Like, how does the math on some of those deals pencil out?
Well, using the modern art concept, I think this music is priceless. And we bought name and likeness on 2 of those acts. So we own all the logos, merchandising, experiential potential, event potential. There is no price, as far as I'm concerned, for Pink Floyd. There's no price. What price can you put on? What price is a Picasso? It's relative. And interestingly, which has backed up that process, is that Spotify now, as it hits a maturity in particularly the English language markets, that the audience of Spotify is older now by design, because Spotify is now 10 years old and the audience is getting older. And so if you look at the dynamics of the marketplace, it means that the percentage of people listening to older music is much higher. And so, I think it's a foregone conclusion. To be honest, we have relationships with every one of the ones you mentioned. We've had recording and Michael's songwriting. We've had the recordings for 50 years. Pink Floyd has been signed to us in America for 50 years. Bruce Springsteen has been signed his whole career for 50 years. We took the publishing off another company with Springsteen. We took the records off another company with Queen. With Pink Floyd, we had the records in North America. We didn't buy the publishing. And we bought Bob Dylan's recorded rights as well. So they all had a relationship.
Right. So Universal did the publishing and you did the records? Because Dylan released a lot through Columbia, right, historically?
Yeah, well, Dylan's been on Columbia, apart from one record in I think the 70s, which David Geffen did. But we, and so we have a lot of numbers, we have a lot of artistic understanding, we have a lot of expertise on the structure of those artists' careers. So they felt like good fits. And quite frankly, I didn't want any of those artists to go anywhere else. Bruce Springsteen's been on Columbia his whole career. It was not going to leave. It would be like, in the museum saying, there's the Basquiat, it's someone else's now. That wasn't going to happen. So at the end of the day, we think they're lucrative. We think that as we move into incredible eras of digital exploitation, we think Dark Side of the Moon or Thriller or Bohemian Rhapsody or Born to Run are going to be experientially very exciting for generations even well beyond, certainly your generation, well beyond my generation. Your generation is going to see those in different guises for the next 100 years.
Well, you brought up the increase in catalog consumption. I'm curious, how much of that is just older listeners coming on streaming? By which I mean, are people listening to more old music, or is it just you're getting paid for it differently?
We're getting paid for it differently. And I think that, and obviously people are discovering catalog on all the platforms, whether it be Snapchat, Instagram, or TikTok, or Spotify. So, people are discovering that. I mean, that the chart is random with catalog because we've got records in the chart from 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, literally when I say in the chart, in the top 50,
right.
Spotify from 4 different decades. So.
Yeah. Because people blame catalog. There's this whole sort of narrative in the music business the last few years. I feel like that it's impossible to break new artists, and part of it is that catalog is crowding them out.
No, I think it's, I think it goes back to my original point, that I think sometimes you need to have something coming up underground and not being overexposed quickly. And I think social media does expose things very quickly, not always for the best purposes. When I was a kid growing up, you could look at rooms around genres of music, and in that room would be 28 people, and 15 of those people would end up being painters, sculptors, musicians, filmmakers. And those rooms are tough to make now because someone's filming those rooms automatically. And one of my friends in a band who were very big in the 80s from a movement once said to me, I think everyone was said then in social media, we were shit. And so they wouldn't like us, and we would have never been successful because people would have judged us on the first hour we ever stood on a stage in front of a bunch of people who were tastemakers who went on to be very successful. So I think that, again, I think tech blows it up. And it's great when you're being blown up for that minute. Is it great 5 years on? Who knows?
Right. Is there a tech platform right now that you feel like I guess, you would like to see them pay you considerably more, right? Like you're making plenty from Spotify, imagine.
You know the answer to that. So you're just asking, you already know the answer to that. I'd like several tech platforms to pay me more.
Okay. I'll ask more directly. Does TikTok pay you guys enough?
I think the debate on that would be, did we start off with TikTok on the right note, and did we allow them to become what they think they are, which is a promotional platform? And we possibly did. They are not a promotional platform. They are a hugely profitable corporation. And we allowed them to be MTV. And we shouldn't have done that. And now we're backpedaling from there. But the truth is, we should get paid more by several of our DSP partners. And that's part of my job. It's to make sure that we're paid and in turn the artists are paid.
Yeah. One other thing, another big development this year is finally those DSPs are raising prices, right? Spotify, Apple, so on. If you could just like snap your fingers tomorrow, what do you think Spotify should cost?
Oh, I mean, I had lunch with Daniel Ek in the summer in Stockholm. I mean, I constantly say to him, and I think obviously they've done a spectacular job of building a business around music, so I would not be critical of what they've done, but I think it should have been going up $1 a year for the last 5 years. Right. So I think it should probably be much more akin to the Netflix pricing, because Netflix pricing is not based on the entire catalogue of content for television and film, and Spotify has every piece of music you could ever want.
Right.
So from that point of view, yes, I think Spotify should be more, but you know, they're making ground on it now, and they wanted to be competitive and get their share price up, and so they didn't put the price up. We obviously wouldn't agree with that, but we are where we are, and they're finally putting the prices up, and that's great.
Yeah. We didn't talk about AI.
We didn't. That's good, right?
Is that a good thing?
I don't know. Probably. You know, it's like, I mean, how long have you got? You know, it's like, I mean, I can talk to everybody individually about AI. I mean, you know, we're in a position where AI is going to be super important to our business. I hope it's most importantly going to be exciting and make new creative vision and be fantastic in that. For the meantime, I'm sorting out the rights model, and my team and I are supporting out the rights model, making sure that we get paid for whatever the training models are and whatever comes out of AI. But do I think it's going to be an exciting tool in the future for making great music? Yeah. I think there's a 14-year-old in a bedroom somewhere who's about to make amazing music using the tools of AI. But we have to get the business model sorted out first.
And if an artist comes to you and wants to screw around with different things, do they have the right to do that, or do they need your permission?
I think that we're waiting for the artist to come. I'm not going to use that phrase, but we're going to wait for the artist to experiment, and then we'll follow the artists. When we know that experimentation is absolutely exciting, creative, then we will follow them.
Got it. We are at time, but I'm going to give you one last plug, I guess. Who's going to be the next artist that you guys break? Who's someone that this room doesn't know now that they will know 6 months from now?
That would be really bad for me, because then some other artist is going to say, you never mentioned me, and I'm really diplomatic.
I know. I usually have a rule against these questions. I figure this is promotion.
No, we have 1,000. I'm not going to.
But every label boss, I know this from talking to them. You guys all make a list of like, these are the 5 biggest priorities for this year.
But I can tell you, you know full well that we have a huge independent distribution arm as well, and we have a lot of artists, and the mythology that we're signing less artists is not true. We have more. Okay, I'll give you something that my head of Latin told me the other day, which is because we have a very big Latin division. We have Bad Bunny and Raul Alejandro and Shakira and Peso Pluma and all these artists, and he told me, here's a musical tip, that the next blend coming from Latin America, which is a huge musical movement right now, is reggaeton mixed with tropical music. And artists are starting to blend, and it's coming out to some degree of Argentina and Colombia. And tropical music blended with reggaeton is going to be hugely popular.
Okay, I look forward to that.
That was diplomatic, wasn't it? Didn't have to mention one artist.
Rob, thanks for doing it.
Great, thank you very much.
Please welcome to the stage rapper 310 Baby and Alex Moore, Chief Business Officer at Empire, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Shartia Brantley.
Good afternoon. Oh, we can do better than that. Good afternoon. All right, that's more like it. We have 310 Baby in the house today.
Hello.
Welcome to you both. It's great to have the opportunity to speak with you about Empire's rising generation. And so, Alex, I want to start with you. Empire has launched the careers of Kendrick Lamar, Cardi B, Anderson .Paak, household names. And you have a stellar roster of artists, including Shabuzi, who is just on a tear right now, with Tipsy being #1 for what, 12 weeks in?
13 weeks.
13
Record-breaking 13 weeks straight.
So can you tell us a little bit more about Empire and what are you doing to support your artists, such as 310 Baby?
Yeah, so by way of introduction, Empire is the largest independent record label in the U.S. by market share. We have over 300 artists signed to the label, including Shabuzi, 310 Baby, and many more. We have 3,000 artists signed to the distribution arm. We are a truly global company and a truly global roster. We have 250 employees in 25 countries and are really leading the way in terms of breaking artists and genres outside of English-speaking regions. So if we look at the African continent, for example, we are the largest label there. We are the largest label in West Asia, North Africa, which is formerly known as the Middle East. And we continue to invest and develop in emerging genres and emerging geographies. We're very bullish on the future and what we can do with not just talent in the U.S., but outside of the U.S.
Thank you for that. 310 Baby, I must bring you in. I will give the Cliff Notes version and start with just the month of June. You graduated from high school and you were presented with your platinum plaque for Soak City at graduation. And if you haven't seen the video of his classmates rushing the stage, and it's a beautiful moment. And then you also performed at Kendrick's Juneteenth celebration.
Yes.
So have you had an opportunity to take it all in?
I mean, it's been a lot. But it all came together during my senior year. So, like, it's been about 1.5 years now, and I still really haven't adjusted to it completely. But I'm excited for what's to come. I feel like I'm in the right rooms, and the future is bright.
Now, you call yourself the leader of the youth. Can you expand on that for our audience, and what does that mean when it comes to your sound and your music?
Yeah, I think my sound, I want to touch on my sound. My sound comes from my iPhone. I feel like I call myself the leader of the youth because I want to show kids that no matter what it is that you want to do, you can do it. Nothing is impossible. I made that platinum song you were referring to off my iPhone using the app called BandLab, right? So it's like the future is bright, and I want to show kids that don't let anything stop you. There's no excuse. I didn't have a studio budget. I didn't have a big brother or a father putting money in my pocket so I can go to the studio. I had to figure it out. And technology like AI is making that easier and easier every day for me.
With that, Alex, how do you guys discover 310? He's working on his own, creating his music. What happened?
Well, maybe you want to tell that story.
Yeah, so, I mean, in my room every day on BandLab working, believing that I could one day make it. And then for it to one day click, it all just happened so fast. But it felt like it was meant to be. You know what I mean? I feel like those uncomfortable days or those hard days, that's what makes me stronger. And I feel like every day, I mean, with having Empire, you know, choosing to go independent, for me, it wasn't about the money early on. I wanted ownership and I wanted freedom. With me being young, I didn't really understand everything. I wanted to go independent so I could learn to educate myself. And once again, being a leader of the youth, I want to express that and show the kids around the world that you can go independent and still be successful and go platinum and have a #1 record on both formats.
But in terms of discovering new artists, I think that's sort of your question. We leverage many things, right? Data is obviously important, and we look at streaming data, we look at social data, but we also need to understand where artists fit within the larger cultural narrative, and I think that's what really differentiates us in terms of our investments and the investments we've made, because you can look at all of the data in the world, and you may not be able to predict any sort of success, or you may just get a one-hit wonder. And we really take a long-term orientation in the way that we think about artists, their development, investing in them, and continuing to build out services. Whereas, you know, I think there's been a large pullback in the industry, we're continuing to invest in net new services for artists and allowing them to be able to work all within the confines of Empire and work with our executive leadership team for them to further their careers, and we're really committed to doing that.
And what struck me when we first met, you talked about how the senior leadership team spends time with every artist, and there's this sincere investment in them having a very long and successful career.
That's right. I mean, I'll let 310 talk about something I did with him, which was very unique, and you probably don't see that at a lot of other labels, but we, for every single artist meeting we have all the senior executives in the room and really want to show all of our artists that we're truly all in on them and their careers. And if we don't have that level of commitment, if we don't have that level of excitement for an artist, then why are we even working with them, right? And so I think that the fact that so many of our artists, for example, have our numbers and are texting us regularly and asking for things or trying to get information or connected to people, and we're doing that for them, shows that we're always going above and beyond what our, necessary commitment is, and we're really trying to service our artists as best as we can.
I want to talk a little bit about social media and the power of TikTok in terms of building your audience. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I feel like without TikTok, I'm not here today. TikTok allows artists all around the world, millions and millions of people, to be discovered. I mean, there's pros and cons to TikTok. I feel like there's pros and cons to anything. But I feel like there's always a bigger picture. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like with having TikTok, I can now promote myself without having to go to this big major. I was doing that, like the song Soak City was going up a little bit on TikTok without any label. Now I take that, I go to Empire, I tell them what's going on. They understand that I'm not a traditional artist. I am now a 2024 artist, a kid that made a song off his phone that blew up and launched off TikTok. So you have to understand that when I am that unique artist, I have to be taken, it's a different type of care. There's Alex in my corner. You know what I mean? There's having that one-on-one, I can call Alex at any time. I don't know if I'll get that anywhere else, and that's one thing I was worried about early on, and that's where I ended up at Empire.
Mm-hmm. I drove him to 2K games to get scanned into NBA 2K25 this year. I don't know what label exec's doing that for their artists.
Well, before my final question, I do want to tell the audience that 310 Baby will perform at our networking party after the event today, so super excited about that. Before we wrap, let's talk about what's next.
I mean, hopefully more 2K games, Alex.
We're on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to continue to do music, but with me understanding that music is up and down, it may not be 20 years. I look forward to investing, into technology, different startups, and hopefully, because I am now a public figure, I can take this 310 Baby business and attach it to Legos or Nike or something, and then, further expand who I am today.
Thank you for that. Alex, on Empire?
For us, it's continuing to enter new emerging markets and figure out how we can really bring those artists to the U.S., and we really focus on diaspora marketing. We believe we're a master at doing that, and we've crossed over multiple artists from the African continent, for example, very successfully to the West. A great example of that is Ashake, who had New York Times Best Album of 2023, a non-English speaking album, sold out Barclays and sold out O2. And he just had his first English speaking album come out a couple weeks ago, and his single was with Travis Scott, right? And so we've successfully crossed him over. We're going to continue to invest in Asia as a continent specifically, and really excited for our future there.
Wonderful. We must leave it there. Thank you so much. Looking forward to your performance. Thank you.
Listen carefully. Can you hear the rhythm in the markets? Not just in the syncopations triggered by inflation, but in the preludes leading to global elections, in the dissonance that moves the Nikkei, and the rising course conducted by AI. There's music in the markets, and if you want to learn to listen for it, we'll show you how.
Please welcome to the stage Bloomberg Businessweek editor Brad Stone.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brad Stone, the editor of Bloomberg Businessweek. As you all know, magazines love lists. We love them. We're addicted to them. Person of the year, company of the year, performer of the year. But at Businessweek, we think you don't need us to tell you who those people are. You probably already have opinions. So we've tried to do something a little bit more challenging, but hopefully more valuable, which is to tell you who's coming, who you might not be talking about now, but you will certainly be talking about soon. And that's our annual Ones to Watch list. And right now I'm thrilled to bring you our second annual Ones to Watch in Entertainment, Arts, and Culture. Okay, let me give you a little bit more detail about this incredible list, and then I'm going to invite one of our Ones to Watch on stage for a conversation. Carlos Eduardo Espina is a leading Hispanic political voice in the U.S., and his TikToks about the election, immigration, and other topics routinely get north of 1 million viewers. They're really incredible. A tennis player and commentator, Christopher Eubanks, has a warm charisma on air for the Tennis Channel and ESPN, where he deftly mixes observations on matches with anecdotes from his life on the tour. Parker Finn has almost certainly scared you to death. He's the director of 2022 Smile and Smile 2, which hits theaters next week. I saw a trailer a couple days ago. All I can say is, Parker, maybe not for me. No, I will see it. You may not know what a webtoon is just yet, but you will soon, thanks to Jun-Gu Kim, whose platform for the comics has millions of fans and whose company is expanding into live action films and TV. Restaurateur Avish Naran has given us chicken tikka pizza, wings slathered in Kashmiri red chili, and more at his wildly popular Pija Palace. And stay tuned, because he's got a Filipino spot and a bar on the way. Precious Okoyaman, her art often takes the form of incredible installations. Think greenhouses filled with butterflies and poisonous plants. And if that weren't enough, they're also a poet. Renee Rapp is one of Hollywood's hottest multi-hyphenates, a pop star who's performed on Saturday Night Live, and an actress who played a popular character on the Max series The Sex Lives of College Girls. If you haven't heard one of Chappell Roan's songs stuck in your head recently, you might want to get it checked. The Pink Pony Club singer-songwriter is drawing massive crowds at music festivals while also bringing awareness to issues surrounding celebrity and mental health. Shabuzi's single A Bar Song, Tipsy, an ode to drinking whiskey and dancing on tables, held the top spot in the Billboard Hot 100 for months, and later this fall he'll be touring with Jelly Roll, another country star with hip-hop roots. Tubi is a leader in free ad-supported streaming TV and has 81 million monthly users. Anjali Sood is the company's CEO, and that's all I'll say right now because she's going to join us soon. If you're a fan of reality TV, Nick Viall needs no introduction. The Viall Files is a must-listen podcast for all the latest drama, with more than 200,000 people following the show on Spotify alone. And finally, Juju Watkins, a guard for the USC Trojan women's basketball team, is the future of the sport. She broke the scoring record for freshman college player and already has deals with companies such as Nike, Fanatics, and Meta. Congratulations, Carlos, Parker, Jun-Gu, Avish, and Nick, who are all here today. Please stand. Thank you, guys. And now I'm delighted to welcome on stage Anjali Sood for a conversation. Hi, Anjali. Thank you for doing double duty today. I know you spoke earlier.
I feel like I'm the most boring person on this list, so I'm sorry, everyone.
Well, I mean,
try and be interesting.
This is a sophisticated crowd, so most people probably know of Tubi TV, but maybe they don't know how, and I was surprised by how popular it is. So I just said 81 million active viewers a month. I mean, that puts it larger than Paramount Plus, Hulu, Peacock. I guess, talk about, other than, I mean, it's free, right? But what need, what demand is it satisfying in the marketplace that maybe some of these other so-called higher profile streamers aren't meeting?
Yeah, so I joined Tubi as CEO over a year ago. I'd spent nearly a decade before that at Vimeo, the online video platform. And I, too, was surprised, I think, at the incredible momentum that Tubi has seen. And we are now the most watched free TV service in America. And I think some of that is a steady, consistent commitment that Tubi's had for over 10 years. It was started by its founder to free access to the world's largest collection of movies and TV shows. And then some of that is that we are in an era where I think viewers are frustrated and they're looking for a streamer that puts them back at the center. And what we see at Tubi is that we've gotten really good at removing barriers, making it super easy and frictionless to just start watching content without having to pay, without having to take a bunch of steps. And we've also done a good job, I think, of listening to what our fans want, listening to what's happening in culture, and just working really, really hard and diligently to bring people more and more of the stories that they're interested in and that they can't find anywhere else. And it sounds really table stakes, Brad, but it really is just that, and doing it every single day and just not wavering no matter what else is happening in this very kind of intensely competitive market that I think is what is leading to Tubi's momentum.
Well, you mentioned a competitive market, and there are other ad-supported video-on-demand networks. Pluto is owned by Viacom and Paramount, Xumo, Comcast and Charter, Freevee, Amazon. I mean, first of all, who ordained that all of these should be two-syllable names?
That I can't tell you.
Yeah, but also, how do you feel like Tubi has been able to differentiate itself in what is, by any measure, a pretty crowded market?
Well, first I'll say we define our competitive set, I think, much more broadly. We really think of it as we want to be the entertainment destination of choice for this next generation. And we look a lot at cord cutters, cord nevers, and sort of the younger audiences that are coming online. And our perspective is like we don't think of it as we're competing against this player that has this model. We think of it as we're in an attention economy. And ultimately, people are choosing to spend more of their time on social and gaming in some cases than television. And so it's our job to just raise the bar for what free entertainment looks like. And that's how we have kind of thought about our offering and our value proposition. And so the way I think about it is like, yes, I think you're seeing the tailwinds kind of moving in favor of free ad-supported television. I do think that is something that we will continue to see. But I think that's because the next best alternative for people to spend their time is sometimes just opening up their phone and going on TikTok. And so if we don't find a way to make the offering feel as delightful and easy as that, we will lose in the long term. And so that, I think, is really what we've been doing, and I think it's working.
So I mentioned some of your direct rivals, but recently we've seen Amazon get introduce an ad-supported tier, Netflix. So I guess what is happening to the market? What happens to ad rates, maybe in particular, as more and more of the streaming inventory comes online?
So I think on the consumer side, there are absolutely more players that are offering ad tiers. Many of them, though, those are ad tiers once you pay. So to be clear, that's asking consumers to pay to watch ads. My perspective, that's very different than being entirely free.
So is there just frustration that is fueling this? People are sick of all the bills of paying more than they did in the previous regime?
I mean, I think that is a factor. When I look at Tubi's audience, over 65% are cord cutters and cord nevers. We see the fastest growth among younger multicultural audiences. And in general, very strong engagement among Gen Z and millennials. And so I suspect it's a bit of both. And then your question on the ad side, I think there's definitely more competition for ad inventory, for sure. We are seeing that pressure. I think everyone saw in the upfront market real pressure on ad rates and CPMs. In Tubi's case, we didn't experience that. We actually had a really strong, or strongest upfront, and really had nice acceleration and double-digit growth. But I think in our case, it is because we were always sort of priced, I'd say, appropriately for this current environment. And we never invested in, we didn't have the Netflix strategy of like big budget originals, which would historically commanded those higher CPMs. So we've been, I think, more protected, from some of these dynamics. It doesn't mean it's not a very competitive market. But again, I think the key to winning in the market is like keep the viewer front and center and continue to be the most engaging place for them.
Well, I want to ask you about originals, but first, as I was preparing, I looked at Tubi and I looked at some of the most watched list, and some of them really jumped out at me, like the Partridge Family. That is not a show that I have contemplated in many years. Columbo is on the list. Don't sleep on Peter Falk. And talk about ones to watch.
Fun fact: Columbo is watched. You might think it's like the older generation. We have got a ton of like young Gen Z audiences that are watching this content.
How do you account for this?
We say it's not nostalgia; it's nostalgia. And by the way, that's obviously not all we have on Tubi. We have hundreds of originals that we go out and produce that we think are very reflective of culture today. And 1 in 4.
Another one was TMZ 3-part investigation into UFOs.
There you go.
I've not watched that one yet.
Well, I think to that point, I think what we're seeing is, so we started with this huge library, and then we don't presume to know what is good. The premise for Tubi is we are not the arbiters of quality. We let our audience tell us. And what we find is that they surprise us. And if we had approached it as looking at, okay, we're going to program for a gender or a demo or a very monolithic kind of sense of an audience, we would miss these opportunities. And so what I see is more that I think when we look at audience tastes and preferences and culture, it's just way more multidimensional. It's moving fast. It's moving at the speed of TikTok. And we benefit because we have such a long tail of different kind of content that we can pick up these things, these hidden gems that you might not realize are popular or people are interested in. And what our fans tell us is that's what they love about Tubi. It feels different. It feels like one of the things we hear is that people feel seen, weirdly, on Tubi because of the content. And we're leaning into that.
So let's talk about the original strategy. So 300 titles, is it throughout the life of the service, or
over the last couple of years?
Yeah, okay.
We embarked on originals about 2 years.
So what there's a surplus of content, some might say, out there. What audiences are you pursuing? What's your strategy?
Yeah. So as I said, we don't think of it as here's a genre or an audience we want to go after, but we do think of it as what are we seeing that is bubbling up among the fandoms on Tubi, where it's clear that they want more of something, and for some reason they aren't able to get that through, or we aren't able to get that through the traditional kind of ecosystem. And so you'll see us do a whole variety of things.
Can you give us a few examples?
Yeah, sure. So this week we announced a talk show with Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. It's more about culture and sports culture. We have a generational comedy called The Z-Suite that's being filmed right now, starring Lauren Graham, and it's sort of a Madison Avenue advertising agency that gets taken over by Gen Z. What could go wrong? And you'll also see things that you just might not expect. A great example, and this is an example of us kind of listening in terms of what's happening in social. So there's a fandom called the Earpers, and that they're fans of a show, a sci-fi show that was canceled called Winona Earp. It's like a Canadian kind of thriller, Western. And our team noticed that those fans were really, really passionate about bringing that show back. And so we brought it back. And it's an example where, we dropped the trailer and we had 600 million views on social in 24 hours. And that fandom has come back over and over and over. And so that's why I say, you know, for us, it's not about trying to find one show that's going to speak to everyone. It's about recognizing that what Tubi does well is we help stories find their audience, and we want to keep doing that over and over and over and over, and that's how we think about our originals.
Films as well?
Yes. In fact, one of the interesting things is there's a Variety Illuminate, they do the top 10 movies of the week charts, and I think we had a Tubi original movie 4 times in the last quarter make those charts, and they're titles you might not have heard of, right? Like Bloodline Killer, Robin, The Assistant 2. These are examples of content where we're working with sometimes independent, homegrown creators. You know, it's stories that aren't going to be in the box office, but they absolutely resonate on our platform.
Well, speaking of the box office, would you ever consider bringing a Tubi original into theaters?
We actually have something right now. It's a movie with Peter Dinklage and Juliette Lewis called The Thicket. It's our first attempt. It's a passion project of Peter's, and it's really great. It's getting some really good reviews, so hopefully many of you will get a chance to check it out for free on Tubi in the coming future.
You mentioned Vimeo, so you joined Tubi from Vimeo a year ago. Vimeo, part of the IAC constellation of companies, but publicly listed. Tubi, part of Fox. Just talk about, you know, the transition, being one of the few remaining content assets inside Fox, and why you decided to join Tubi.
Yeah. So I had a wonderful experience at Vimeo. I was there for 9 years. I was CEO for 6, and we were public for 2. And I really felt like that was a platform that put creators first. You know, we spent all of our time thinking about how to lower the barriers for creators to be able to make and distribute and monetize their content. And one of the things that I experienced as probably the biggest barrier to supporting creators, it wasn't the technology, though there was plenty of opportunity there. It was the distribution. It's getting creators an audience. And the reason that I came to Tubi was I really felt that the approach, the fact that the business was it's a pure business model. It's 100% free and ad supported. That means that we live and die by viewer engagement. We only make money if someone is watching and engaging on our service. And there's a purity of that aligns incentives that I felt like would be a really exciting foundation to hopefully disrupt a little bit in streaming and to help kind of unify creators and audiences in a way that I think has long been needed. So for me, it's been a really incredible year to see sort of some of that hypothesis start to take shape. And we have a lot of work to do, and we're very dialed in on the Tubi team. But I am optimistic.
A question that is probably of great interest to your boss is Tubi profitable?
We see a very clear path to profitability. But in Tubi's case, I'll say, first, we did not have a content strategy that involved huge swings and huge bets where you're spending millions and millions of dollars on very premium original content, which that's often the hardest part to getting to profitability. The other part in our case is we have built up a very highly engaged audience, and we see very clearly our path to profitability shouldn't come from cutting costs. And in fact, we are not cutting costs. We are investing more. We are growing our investment in stories and content. And our belief is that we just have to get more and more efficient at monetizing our audience by building relationships with advertisers. And again, we had a good upfront. So I feel like the path for us is really just growing in a more scalable and efficient way. And that's ultimately a much more sustainable way to be profitable in the long term versus having to cut costs that erode your value proposition for viewers.
How do you think Fox views Tubi strategically? Like, is there potential for some kind of combination or partnership with Fox News? Do you think that they look at introducing a subscriber tier to Tubi?
I think that right now the value that Tubi brings is it's meaningful. We're really a way to expand the pie. As I mentioned, our audience is largely incremental, so 65% cord cutters and nevers. If you think about it, Fox has a really strong stable of assets, but it's a very different audience. And so Tubi offers this opportunity to really reach this cordless generation. And everything that we have seen on the team and that I see as my mandate, it really is to build the #1 streamer and to just very much focus on being the absolute best at delighting audiences. And I think that is strategic.
So 2 quick questions before we run out of time. We've talked a little bit today about the disintegration of regional sports networks. Do you think Tubi has a role to play in broadcasting live sports or news?
So we do feature a lot of live sports linear channels where you can access things like WNBA games on Tubi. We have decided against investing in premium live sports rights, primarily because those rights are very expensive, and they don't really make sense on a pure ad-supported model. So what you're going to see Tubi do more of is we'll look to very strategically, in partnership with Fox Sports, play a role in more of the sports culture, the stories around athletes, the stories around leagues. That Deion Sanders talk show I mentioned is one thing you'll see from us. I think for the Super Bowl, you'll see us do a purple carpet. It's a pregame show that's not about the sports. It's going to be about the fashion and the culture and then sort of the celebrity vibes around the game. And so you'll see us experiment there. What we hear from younger audiences, particularly Gen Z, is that they're very interested in the stories around sports. I think we saw a little bit at the Olympics too. So we're kind of making a bet that that's the place where Tubi can add value.
Okay, but in terms of picking up, say, a Midwestern baseball team's regional broadcast, as a lot have lost their partners.
We've been thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, I never say never in a market like this, but right now I think we're much more interested in on-demand movies, TV shows. That's where we see sort of our strength. And so we'll see how the rest unfolds.
Okay, last question. So many SVOD players, AVOD players. You still have linear TV declining, but still a sizable audience. What does the future look like? How much consolidation do you anticipate?
I mean, I think there will be some consolidation, and certainly there are some challenges ahead. But I see more opportunity than challenge. And as I said, I think the addressable market for us is actually really big because it is the attention economy. And yes, that's competitive space, but there's still room for disruption. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to bring more diversity in storytelling, more unique stories from more unique storytellers. I think we're at a place right now in the industry where the time has come where we can do things like that. And Tubi is experimenting here. We just launched the first fan-fueled studio in streaming where we actually have people, putting up their projects and we'll greenlight them based on fan feedback. Issa Rae's partnering with us on that. And there's just so much there to still be kind of figured out. So I'm optimistic. I think you're going to see overall the viewer experience is going to become the key differentiator, and I think that's ultimately a good thing.
All right. Well, Anjali, I'm going to go catch up on my Columbo.
Check out Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I watched it in its time. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Matt Stone, co-creator of South Park and co-founder of Deep Voodoo, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Lucas Shaw.
All right. It's here for Lucas. Come on, everybody. All right.
No, they're here for you. Everyone's tired of me. Thank you for making this work.
Yeah,
You're in here filming something. We'll talk about that in a second.
Okay, all right.
But I'm curious because over the last year or two when we've spoken, you have really encouraged me to go to a Mexican restaurant. And I think
I'm here shilling.
We should start with a question that is maybe on everyone's mind. You're a pretty savvy business person. Why did you buy a bankrupt Mexican restaurant in Lakewood, Colorado?
Because we're not that savvy. I'm not a savvy business person, quite frankly. If you don't know what Casa Bonita's, this giant restaurant in Colorado where Trey and I grew up, it's like 52,000 square feet. If you've been, it's the best place in the world. If you haven't, you're like, what the fuck is everyone talking about? But it went bankrupt, and Trey and I bought it, and we've kind of figured that when you hear that sentence in your head, like, how hard can it be? You should really beware of that voice in your head. We said, how hard could it be? The food sucked. How hard could it be to revive this place? And it was pretty hard. It took the last couple of years. We sank a lot of our money into it, but It's open.
The documentary would say, so you thought you were going to spend $6 million. Am I?
I thought I was spending $3 million, and then it turned into about 40, and it's actually probably more than 40. But so when oh, here we go. But some part of what, like, when we've got a really good friend of ours, and we have a documentary division of Park County, our company, our friend Arthur Bradford, who's always shooting video of us. And there was this moment when everything was going really bad. And I just thought, well, and it was really stressful and shitty, and everyone's yelling at each other, and everyone's stressed out. And I just thought about, like, Kitchen Nightmares, or, you know, those, if there was funny music playing behind this meeting, it would be funny. And so we, you know, encouraged Arthur to keep shooting, and we ended up with this movie called Casa Bonita Mi Amor, which originally was, and we haven't got enough material for, you know, a 3 or 4 part kind of one of those 3 or 4 hour long things. And when we watched it, we just decided to cut it down to its core, and its core really was about my partner, Trey. You know, as an artist and as a kind of slightly insane, great guy who dedicates himself to something and sort of won't stop.
Right.
And $40 million later, we have a Mexican restaurant. But I will say, we serve, we have, when I say Mexican restaurant, we did 14,000 people went last week. That's what we're doing.
Is it making money now? And setting aside the $40 million you incinerate.
You're asking the wrong. Yeah, I'm not a savvy businessman. I don't know. Okay. I think it's getting close to making money. We have 265,000 people who are our founders, who are people who are our biggest fans. We have a direct relationship with, who are on the 1 million+ person email list before. They said we're doing 14,000 people a week right now. We hope to get to 20,000 people a week, and it's funny to us, but people are calling us about opening Casa Bonitas in other places. It's just like, okay, you know, like, and that's just funny knowing if you just came from Denver that we would be in that position doing it.
Yeah.
But it's open. We're really proud of it. I'm being self-deprecating. We're really proud of it, and the movie shows how hard the renovation was, and again, Trey, my partner's dedication to the cause.
So you always have someone filming you?
Kind of. Isn't that annoying?
Why?
Not always, but it's a really good friend of ours, Arthur Bradford, and he did a documentary, if anybody saw it, called 6 Days to Air about us a long time ago, and we just kind of have kept filming, you know.
It's you and Beyonce, you just tell.
I know it's like such a rapper thing to do. Like here's our doc crew, but in this particular case, it ended up making something really compelling.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned Trey as sort of this kind of mad genius as he's depicted in the documentary. How does the working relationship between the two of you work? Where it feels like, if you've watched 6 Days to Air, it's pretty evident that sort of he is the creative lead.
Yep.
And so what is your role alongside him, and how does that relationship work?
I don't know. It changes all the time. I mean, at this point, we're family, you know. I mean, to pick it apart is we've just been through it all together.
Yeah.
You know, but Trey's he really is a true artist, capital A artist, and he's so talented it kind of fucks people up, you know.
Yeah.
He can write and direct and act and write songs, and you know, and I'm kind of a smart guy that I can help along those things or help refine his vision along the way. Or a lot of times, you know, I bring ideas to the show. When you do a show like South Park, you have to have like, what the hell are we going to do this week? So sometimes it's a producer-director relationship. Sometimes it's co-writing. At the end of the day, I think we like our core competency, as you would say at Bloomberg Screentime, would be
I will say
fart jokes and funny voices. We like making each other laugh. You know what I mean? So, but like you'll see in the movie, if you see the movie Casa Bonita Mi Amor, I mean the title comes from a point. There's a part where the camera they catch him just in this, and it's just a very, if you know Trey, it's like you see this moment in the film, like that is Trey,
right?
And he just starts singing this little Elvis thing, Casa Bonita Mi Amor, and it's like. That's Trey. Like when he gets his mind on doing something artistic, you're not going to get in his way. He'll work harder than anybody. He's more dedicated than anybody, and like I'll go anywhere with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, even though I grew up in Denver too, and I understand all the nostalgia, and I have a real just like his connection with Casa Bonita is pretty astounding.
Now, you said in a 2010 interview with the New York Times.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. No, this is not a bad one. I thought it was funny because you said in that interview that you would not be making, both of you laughed. You're like, there is no way we're going to be making South Park when we're 50. Because this was celebrating a certain anniversary. Yeah. I believe you're now 53.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Sorry. Is there an end in sight for the show, or have you guys just reached a point where you're like, we're just going to keep doing it, and at a certain point maybe we'll get tired of it, but for now
I think we're going to. No, we don't have an end in sight, and actually, and I'll say, honestly, it's because it's still such an awesome sandbox.
Yeah.
You know, we're working on a movie right now, a live action movie. When we get back to South Park, it's going to be like, oh right, here we go. Like I can't wait to see, hang out with those characters again, to be cheesy about it. Like we love doing South Park, and then I think we will last long enough to reach the singularity and pass it off to our AI. I mean, which sounds crazy, but people are talking like that now.
Yeah.
But we have no plans now. We don't
really regret that. Oh, they took the chart off. Good.
Yeah.
That was the one that was going to show that people watch Family Guy more than South Park. But
oh man, you Lucas, you bring me up on stage.
I'm curious in terms of like, do you ever feel? Because I think
put it back up. Yeah.
Oh God.
And American Dad. Oh my Lord.
Let's talk about the two at the bottom, which are the two shows I really grew up with in a lot of ways. Do you ever? Because I believe you have a relatively friendly relationship with the Simpsons people, right?
I mean, we don't know anybody really personally. I mean, but.
Do you ever feel like, because I think they had you beat by about 8-9 years, something like that. Like, do you ever?
Simpsons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're these two shows that have been on forever. Do you ever think like, okay, we got to go on longer than they do?
That won't happen. I mean, we're not. That will be in the AI singularity future, whatever the hell that is. No, The Simpsons was an incredibly formative show for us. You know, we were in college going to bars, watching it along with people, along with Beavis and Butthead and what Mike Judge was doing. Those were like, oh, you can do this? You know, before that, there was no idea that you could do an adult animation.
Is there a new adult animated show that you really love? Like, have you seen anything new in the last 5 years?
I don't watch any television.
Really?
None.
Why not?
I got kids and I got work and I don't know. I don't do anything more I don't do anything.
Well, okay,
I like hang out with my friends.
You're gonna
play video games.
Let's say you go home this weekend, right? You have. What do you do to relax?
I don't know. I just don't watch TV.
No, that's fine. But so what do you do?
Okay, what is this? All right. Go on a hike, hang out with my kids. They're coming in town this weekend. I haven't seen them in a few weeks. I see my friends.
Right.
Might have a drink.
That's allowed, yes.
Might have a smoke.
Also allowed.
Might hang out with people. I don't know. I just am not a TV person. I really never have been personally. And now to get to like, if there's any, now I just find the whole thing bewildering when I turn on. There's no way well, frankly, we talked about this last time. I feel burned. The last couple of TV shows I've gotten into, and I do feel like this has been a real casualty or the problem with the streaming revolution is like, someone will say, you gotta watch this show. You gotta watch Mandalorian. It's so awesome. You gotta watch Battlestar Galactica. You gotta watch this one show. And I'll never watch TV, and I will, and I'll go on, I'll start watching it, and goddamn, it's great. And I'm like, I am missing something. And then you get into that second season, there's that episode that's bullshit, and I feel so betrayed. No, it's not. I don't have a rational. I'm like, oh well, you know what? The economics, they really tried. I don't do that. I'm like, fuck you. You're wasting my time.
Right.
And that's when I feel like.
So you're the
economics. No, the business of the business that the streaming revolution has created is screwing with people's heads and distorting the art of what should be being made.
Even though.
No, I'm irrational about it.
Well, I'm curious though because you're talking about season 2, right? And
season 2. As soon as I feel like you're wasting my time, I feel completely betrayed.
Because
I fell in love with something, and now I know you're screwing with me, and you're screwing with my heart, and I have like a short fuse, and that's that.
Well,
Shut the computer, and then I don't watch TV for 3 more years. That's, if anybody knows, that is seriously true,
It's funny because I feel like one of the criticisms of streaming services is they cancel shows too quickly. Shows never, like, there's no streaming show that is I don't think, in like season 10 or 12 or anything like that. But so what part of the process do you feel like streaming has distorted?
Well, maybe I don't know if it's streaming or like and listen, I got a show that's been on 27 years, so what am I talking about? I don't know, but like it's just when I feel like someone's wasting my time, and I feel like that is part of the butter and bread equation that's gotten screwed up in the 2010s from streaming of like, well, let's make the bread this. We got this. There's this much butter in the world. Right. We're going to do this much bread, and it doesn't work.
Right.
There's just not that much good stuff out there.
Right.
And because the technology's made it so with editing and photography and everything looks glossy and it looks good, and then you go, okay, this feels good, and then they fool you, and then episode 7 you realize you're wasting my time, and then again, bang, and then I get really mad.
Do you think that? I'm curious. Do you worry that AI makes that worse because it'll make it even easier to make stuff?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Because on the other hand, there's a lot of people who the technology's made it so that there's a lot of cool stuff happening. I don't want to be a complete grouch. I'm a pretty big grouch when someone wastes my time. But if there has been a lot of like great stuff like with YouTube and people online. What am I saying? I'm saying the tools, the tools to make films are so much different than when Trey and I started. That's cool. It's cool that people can make stuff.
Like, how much does well, this is maybe going in the other direction of what you were just saying. Like, how much does the average episode of South Park cost now versus when you started?
Oh, a gazillion times more. Yeah, because Trey and I make so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, we were living on couches when we were literally crashing on our friend's couch when we first started making the show.
Right.
Now it's quite a bit more.
Yes.
Get Trey out of bed it's not going to get out of bed for
Well, the savviest deal you ever did was you got 50% of your digital rights.
Yeah. No, that was a good idea. And no, so that turned out to be a good idea.
The company where you've been home since the start of South Park's Paramount obviously had a rather bumpy year.
Yeah.
What were you guys thinking during the sale process? Are you like reading the stories that my colleagues and peers and I are writing? Are you talking to people? Like, what is?
Oh,
no.
Of course. I mean, yeah. I mean, we. What happened between those digital rights and between when we went and did Book of Mormon with our friend Bobby Lopez, and just the way Broadway works is between that and then having enough money and having a little bit of savvy, we've moved into, we're owners now. We're not for hire. You know what I mean? We went over that. We got above that, looked above those clouds. You know what I mean? So we really, in a way, were fortified to be okay with whoever is going to buy Paramount. If someone's going to buy Paramount and slice it up, great. If someone's going to buy Paramount, we'll buy South Park back from them. Like, we're ready to do whatever. That said, I'm pretty excited about the David Ellison and.
Why is that?
Just we've met a couple of times. I mean, this is just comes from I think.
Did you meet before this or as a result of this?
We met once or twice before, and then we've met once or twice since the whole thing. And the grouch and he seems like someone who genuinely.
The kid of a tech billionaire does feel like someone you would make fun of on the show. I have to say.
not this one.
Yeah.
No, but he seems like a guy who genuinely is. He's not in. We've lived at a Paramount, and I actually like because the current people who work at Paramount that we work with, I really like.
Right.
But it's been a bumpy ride through the.
Yeah. Well, you had the Philippe Damon era.
Yeah.
Was
Phil Dowman.
Phil Dowman.
The Phil Dowman era, where it's quarter to quarter and just milk this thing for what it is every quarter. I don't think that's what David wants to do. He seems like a person who's dedicated, and the team's dedicated to a long-term vision, and that's what you have to do. These projects just take a long time, and the quality over quantity that I think he really believes in lines up with what Trey and I are into.
Right.
We don't do a lot. We hope that what we do is not a waste of anybody's time. And if it is, okay, we tried. Do you know what I mean? But we didn't deliberately go out to go, hey. We could make a little more bread here and spread that butter out.
Yeah.
It's really butter bread. That's all I wanted. That's my really clever analogy today. Sorry.
Okay, so you're not gonna make fun of David. Have you ever done Larry Ellison on the show?
No, won't be making fun of him either. Nope. He's safe for now.
Yeah. Other than owners of Paramount, you guys are pretty much willing to make fun of anyone or anything. Is there anyone or anything you're not interested in touching?
I don't know. We've been asked this so many times.
Okay,
no,
sorry,
and then if we come up with something, yeah. That's really not where we start from.
Yeah. You start from what would be.
Just I don't know. It's just it's the same. What do you write about? It's stuff that's interesting. It's like the way that we luckily that's what I'm saying. We have a sandbox, and it's so fun to, whether it's the news or something happens in our life, we get to go play in our sandbox. That's how it starts, Right. Doing a show about Ozempic. We didn't really make fun of Ozempic. We didn't make fun. You know what I mean? We just found all these different angles to come at it and talk about it.
Right.
That's a big thing. The big change to our world.
Right. Bread and butter Ozempic. We have all the Hollywood bases.
That's pretty good. All right. No. Yeah. Maybe on red list. Yeah. Hollywood needs a little Ozempic to get them.
Did you? I'm curious. At any point during the sale process, did you guys think about trying to buy South Park back? I feel like there were, because Viacom or Paramount, they looked into selling BET, looked into selling Showtime. I assume that
we thought about it.
Like you could have just said, "We'll buy Comedy Central from you."
We thought about it. I'm not saying, we thought about buying, like, I'm going to write a check. We thought about just doing a press release, like, some sort of like, hey, we're going to make an offer, just to be kind of dicks about the whole thing. Right. But
like you and a few of the other people who bid on the company but didn't really bid on the company.
Yeah, no, we would just bid on South Park, and we went through that scenario. But ultimately, like, that's not. I don't know. As I said, I'm excited about Paramount remaining intact. I have a little, I have a little romanticism about Hollywood still, because I'm from the before time. From when we came to Hollywood, it was still Hollywood, Now it's like tech's all come down here and everything's disorienting, and I don't know what a studio is anymore and what distribution is anymore. But the idea that there's a lot and the people go to work on the lot and, it looks like a back lot and there's a guy in the corner, smoking a cigar and he's rich and
that's what you want.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Compared to the tech, compared to Northern California and tech guys, yeah, I like that. You know what I mean? Like, I've been lucky enough in my life to get to know kind of like tech people, and I live in New York now, I know Wall Street people, and Hollywood, and I'm just totally proud to be part of the Hollywood community.
God, I want to replay that to 25-year-old Matt and see what he has to
I know, that's what I'm saying, after living through all this stuff, like, like, I'm not like
and is that because
Hollywood is like the most stand-up place of all these industries, man. You know what I mean? It is. Fuck all those guys, man. You know what I mean?
Is that because you are an artist and so you feel sort of a kinship with other people in that community, or do you
Probably, yeah. It's just at this point now, it's like, what am I going to do? It's like not being a Lakers fan after living here for so long. Like a bit of it's that. A bit of it's just like the way that, watching. I do feel like and I do feel like, not to be quite as strident, it's a two-way street. Like with Northern California and Southern California, you have this mutual disrespect of what each other does. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, so because I do the one, I've felt these tech people come down over the last 2 decades and just be assholes.
Right.
That's what it is to me. Just be assholes and kind of like, oh, we can do what you do. And then, to segue to Deep Voodoo, we found ourselves stumbling into sort of a tech company, and I have a little more respect for what they do. You know what I mean? The same thing. Now I understand why restaurateurs are, like after doing a Mexican restaurant, it's like, oh, that's not so easy.
Right.
So that's to go back to what I just said. Like, how hard can it be? It's hard.
So for those,
if you're gonna say how hard can it be, it's harder than you think. You're wrong. You're basically wrong.
For those unfamiliar, Deep Voodoo is your AI company.
Yeah, Deep Voodoo is this AI company. We sort of, I would just liken it to like our punk rock version of Weta or ILM, where we started to try to make a movie to make fun of Trump before the pandemic, and we basically decided we were going to do deepfake technology to make fun of him and to make fun of a bunch of people. I mean, basically, it was a giant like copyright nightmare or whatever. Like we're just going to use everybody's face and just make fun of everybody. And we got the runaround from a bunch of special effects companies. Yeah, look at this. This is like some of the stuff we're doing now. And the movie hit the rocks with the pandemic, but the tech is amazing, and we kept going with it. And we've done a couple of music videos. We have a couple of big projects coming out next year, and it's something. It is definitely. I'm not saying our company, but like the technology's here to stay. As I said, a lot more respect for how hard it is to develop software, develop these kind of like models. But as you can see here, it's like a way where actors won't have to wear makeup, won't have to, you can just go to set like looking like whatever, and you'll end up looking like an alien when in the final product. So it's stuff that just meat and potatoes production, saves time, cheaper.
It feels like there's this debate a little bit about, is AI something that will make production more efficient, or is it something that will be an enhancement? Or is it a bit of both?
I mean, I think Trey and I are interested in the efficiency because, again, if you can, let me see how to put it. It's like the deepfake technology kind of, I would say, divorces the input and output of the performance. So it's like I can be you and you could be me,
right?
Or I can be, or someone like a Mike Myers or a Eddie Murphy or Trey, who's incredibly talented and probably could just play every character better than everybody else. Make that very easy. Instead of spending 6 or 8 hours in the chair every day getting ready for makeup, and getting made up like for the clumps or something like that. There's a lot of efficiencies for really talented.
A Nutty Professor reference, I believe.
Of course. I got good Norbit, man. I can go deep into Eddie Murphy, man.
Have you had, because obviously for the show you guys do voice a lot of the characters. Have you talked with anyone or with any company about trying to do voice cloning or licensing your voices for things?
We haven't. They've come to us, and I think we've run into the same. I don't know what everyone else. The first thought was, well, I can think of 80 million things I don't want that character to say, right? And so I don't know what those safeguards would be, but we haven't really looked into that. But.
Right. But you
because we can do it. I mean, but eventually when the AI singularity when I'm 60 and 65 and I'm on my yacht and I don't want to do it anymore, and I can hand it off to my AI assistant on my phone, I guess, I don't know.
You're tapping out at 60 to 65.
I got a yacht. I'm gonna go get on my yacht. I don't have a yacht, by the way.
Yeah.
Trey has a boat.
Other than the Ozempic episode, you haven't done much South Park in a while, right? Why is that?
Because we're working on a movie.
And what can you say about the movie?
It's a movie we're doing a movie with Kendrick Lamar and Dave Free and their company, and we're working on it and hopefully come out July 4th weekend, opposite Jurassic Park, which is pretty funny.
Probably a little different. What is the comedy? What's the genre?
I would say comedy.
Comedy.
Yes.
Very funny.
I would say
Sticking with your roots.
Probably funny. Yeah.
Yeah. How involved is Kendrick in it?
Very involved. And Dave Free's very, very involved. Yeah, we're there every day working on it. But that's what we're doing, and then we'll do South Park beginning of next year. We're coming back with one episode, and then a bunch more in the second half of 2025. But we are working on something.
Cool. You didn't want to do the person you're not going to touch, but I'm now curious if there was one executive, like media tech, whatever, that you would like to make fun of in some way. Who would it be? That you haven't done before. Like who in media, when you see the headlines, see what they're doing, you're like, God.
Sam Altman just makes me laugh every time.
Why?
Does he do anything but podcasts? I mean. This is like the one thing I've done. It's like, this is taking up like half my day. I'm supposed to be doing stuff. Like I do anything but podcasts. Maybe he's smart. I don't know. But like all I do is like see the guy on podcasts.
You would go on Smartless?
Does that dude do anything but go on podcasts and talk about stuff?
Well, presumably he's running a company.
Presumably, but
they are worth 100.
When you actually listen to him talk, does anything he says make sense or strike you as smart? I'm asking you. You're the one who asked me. I'm asking you. I would say yes. I'd say he's a very, very smart guy. Hope to meet him someday. All those podcasts. He's got a lot of experience.
My honest answer to it is I don't listen to the podcasts he goes on.
I don't either. I just see all the podcasts. Yeah, I don't either. You asked me. I'm trying to.
Yeah, no. I couldn't decide if you're going to go. I was like, are you going to go to David Zaslav because he's kind of suing you right now? But Sam Altman's probably a better answer.
I could have done David Zaslav, yeah. No, he's suing me, so I can't talk about him, I guess.
You can talk about him.
I can?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
I don't know. Do you remember the Jerky Boys?
No.
Okay, you're too young. You guys remember the Jerky Boys? There was just a character that went, sue you, sue everybody. And there was like some little character. That's what David Zaslav reminds me of. I mean, that's what Warner Brothers do. They're just suing the NBA. They're suing everybody. So being sued by Warner Brothers like a mark of pride at this point. You know what I mean? If you're not, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So is that enough?
No. On that note, I'm going to let you get back to work.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks. All right. Have fun.
You too.
Talk to you later.
When I'm in front of the camera, I just don't know how to put it. I believe I'm the best on the planet.
welcome to the stage Stephen A. Smith, host of The Stephen A. Smith Show and First Take.
Thanks for coming. Good to see you.
What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? What's going on?
You're the closer.
Is that what they call me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We closed with Snoop yesterday. We're closing with you today.
I like it. I like it. How's everybody doing?
Good. When did you get into town?
I got into town yesterday.
Okay.
I had to go do First Take and all of that stuff, take care of some business, and now I am here.
Okay.
Well, I got to fly out of town and do a First Take from Tennessee State, HBCU, tomorrow. Yeah.
When you started your career, being a columnist at a national newspaper was probably the most influential job you could have in sports media. You had talk radio, ESPN blew up. You're now the most recognizable sports talk person sports media personality, I would say. How do you see your business changing with streaming and social media and what you have to do to sort of stay on top?
Well, you've got to diversify. You've got to make sure that you're paying attention to what the audience wants. You have to understand that who your audience is and where they are. The audience that listens to you on radio might be different than the audience that's watching you and listening to you on your podcast and your YouTube show. Might be different than the audience that's watching you at 10 o'clock in the morning on First Take. For me personally, it's not that challenging from the standpoint that working at ESPN, there's always been a potpourri of shows. What you saw from me on First Take might be a little bit different than what you saw from me on NBA Countdown. It might be a little bit different than what you saw from me when we had Outside the Lines. It might be a little bit different than when you see me on the Sports Center. A lot of times also the personality that you're working with comes into play. Somebody that's hosting the 6 o'clock Sports Center might be different than somebody that's hosting the 11 o'clock, might be different than somebody that's hosting the overnight. You're coming on before games, so you have a certain attitude. And then another show, you're coming on post game. So it's a different attitude because you saw a different, you got some highlights. You saw a different level of excitement that you want to ingratiate yourself with and gravitate to. And so I've always been about the business of making sure that I was multifaceted in my presentation and my delivery, and just to make sure that I'm appealing to the audience and being mindful and cognizant of who actually is out there watching at a particular moment in time in the day or what have you, and what you need to do and what you need to deliver, because everybody's looking for something different.
Yeah. Where do you think the most people watch you now? Is it on ESPN? Is it YouTube? Is it some other social network?
Well, I would tell you, once upon a time, I would have easily said it's ESPN, and you can easily say that now because of the success of First Take. I mean, when you think about the audience, at 10 o'clock in the morning when people are at work or in school or whatever, we're averaging nearly 500,000 viewers live over video. I personally average over 2 billion views a year, so I know that. And then that's just with First Take. That doesn't take into account Sports Center and NBA Countdown. And then now that I've got my YouTube show, I've had it for about 18 months now. I've got about 877,000 subscribers. This month alone, I did over 18 million views. I've had over 2.2 million watched hours and stuff like that. And so you're looking at those numbers and you're saying, well, that's just 3 days a week. And that's me talking about pop culture and entertainment with the P. Diddy scandal or whatever. And, it's not me getting into sports as heavily. It's not even getting into politics as the election draws near, especially because there were times that I was talking about Trump. I was talking about Kamala Harris. I was on the air 8-9 months ago saying Joe Biden needed to step down. It just ain't there anymore. I was saying that. I didn't say it enjoyingly. I said, you certainly don't want to be denigrating the president of the United States or anything like that, but I saw what I saw. And so for me, talking to that audience, knowing that they're not familiar. At one time, they weren't familiar with that, but then those algorithms kick in. You talk about it enough, all of a sudden your name comes up. You make headlines, and then they attach you to those subject matters, and then before you know it, you have an even bigger audience that you never anticipated. And so I think the exciting part for me is the answer to that question is ESPN, but it was definitively and very quickly ESPN.
And now you can say
a year ago, and now I'm saying, it's changing.
Right.
It's changing. They still watching me on ESPN, but the audience is growing on YouTube.
Does ESPN get upset if you talk about politics?
No. I mean, they did once upon a time. And I think that Jimmy Pitaro, the president of ESPN, he came on in 2018, and when he took over for John Skipper, who had exited, he was on the record saying that we need to veer away from politics, and there was a whole bunch of my colleagues that were very upset with me for co-signing that mandate. But I co-signed it, and even all these years later, I'm here to defend the president of ESPN at that time, because we had gotten so political that we went away from giving the audience what it came to expect. You're coming to expect sports, and then we felt it was perfectly okay to just get into stuff that expanded beyond sports. You had the Colin Kaepernick protesting and kneeling. We saw the President Trump at the time hijack the narrative and turn it into some issue involving patriotism and all of this other stuff, when it really wasn't about that. It was about him getting back at owners who wouldn't let him become an owner in 2014 for the Buffalo Bills. And you saw all of this other stuff going on. And, you know, we got away from giving the audience what the audience came to see. And I'm a businessman. And my attitude is, what do the patrons want? What are their expectations? What did they come to see? And if you know what that is, and you sign your name on the dotted line, committing to giving the audience that, then you owe it to them to give them that. And when Jimmy Pitaro was making the declaration that we weren't doing that to the degree that we once did, he was absolutely right. But once we got back to doing what we do, sports, politics, and all of that stuff in between, social commentary and stuff, it intertwines with the world of sports. It's inescapable. And now we get that. But 6 years ago or so, they didn't get it like they do now.
Right. But I suppose there's a reason you're doing that on your own as opposed to on the airwaves.
Well, again, because I'm a businessman and I'm thinking about the business of Stephen A. Smith. I'm not thinking about Stephen A. Smith, the employee. I'm thinking about straight shooter production, straight shooter media, and the kind of aspirations that I have. That doesn't mean that I want to go away, that I want to stop doing sports, that I want to stop working for the people that I work for. But they are keenly aware of the fact that I have a strong desire to expand. You would see me on News Nation a week before the election night doing a town hall. You see me on CNN. You see me on Fox News. You've seen me being interviewed by political commentators and what have you. I like doing that. You've seen me talking about P. Diddy one minute, Will Smith, Chris Rock the next, and so on and so forth. I'm one of those guys that wherever the pulse of the people are at, what is on their mind and what they're most interested in, I like to be a part of that dialogue and a part of that conversation. And so when you come to me, graduating from an HBCU, Winston-Salem State, struggling the way that I did to get to where I am, climbing up the charts from the New York Daily News as a high school reporter to the Philadelphia Inquirer, working on TV, CNN, SI, to Fox Sports, to ESPN, I bust my ass to get to where I am. And I don't want anyone telling me, we're pigeonholing you in this box and we have you in this corner and that's where you belong and that's where you'll stay. I'm not rolling like that. That's not who I am and that's not who I'm going to be.
Okay, that's a good cue I want to read you a quote. You were profiled by GQ in 2019.
Okay, in 2019. I don't remember, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. Your former colleague Max Kellerman had a quote about you.
Okay.
Stephen A. is never going to be happy. That's why he's successful. When you're on the top, when you're on top, the reason you're there is because you are a chronically dissatisfied person.
I think that's a bit excessive. I think that if you know me, if you know my inner circle, my family, my friends, my loved ones, I am a very happy man. I'm living a pretty good life.
Seems like it.
You know,
working real hard.
I work real hard because I love to work. I get that from my mama. God rest her soul, and I'm very proud of that. To me, I'm off when the job is done. I believe in excellence. I believe in doing the best that I possibly can do and exhausting every means necessary to be the best that I can be. But in the same breath, don't get it twisted. I know how to have a good time, and I have a good time quite often. It's just that, when people work with you, there's a level of intensity that I bring to the table. Nick Saban has one of my favorite quotes. Mediocre people don't like winners, and winners don't like mediocre people. And I listened to that, and I nodded my head in affirmation, because you can work with people, and I'm certainly not talking about Max Kellerman here, but you can work with people, as I have in my career, and you run across people that They're fine with getting by. They're fine with punching that proverbial clock, turning it in, making sure they did their job, and that's all they got to do. No, there's a result at the end. You know, we're in the ratings and revenue business. Are we winning? I don't care who I'm working for. This is one of the reasons that I believe that I'm one of the greatest people to work with, because I think about my partners just as much as I think about myself. Are we winning? If I'm winning, but you're losing, we're losing, because we have not achieved success for the both of us. Right. We know what the mandate is. And when you run across people that don't care about whether or not somebody else is winning, and all they're concerned about is the fact that they got theirs, they're very easy to spot. They're not difficult to locate. And when you have to work with them every day and you're committed to success, that's a very difficult proposition to partake of on each passing day. And I'm one of those people that I may not say much, but I want you to be uncomfortable with me. I want you to be uncomfortable around me. I want you to be around me, and you want to get away from me as fast as you can. If you're mediocre and you satisfied with being mediocre and you don't give a damn and you don't care about the results, you don't care about winning, I want you uncomfortable. I really, really do. You know, people like the late, great Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul, you knew his mentality. Michael Jordan has been a friend of mine for years. You knew his mentality. I mean, these are people that were winners, and I believe in being a winner and exhausting yourself to do it.
I'm curious, you made the comment about people who are out for themselves, and I'm going to preface it by saying that's not what I'm implicating for you here, but you're in the middle of negotiating a really big new contract, right?
Okay.
At the same time that ESPN is firing a bunch of people. Do you see how that might rub some people the wrong way?
I can see that. I don't give a shit. Let me answer that question why. That is one question. I'm not offended by the question, so I want to make sure you understand that. But that is a question that I'm not going to take from anybody, and I'm going to tell you why. I can't count the amount of examples where I saw people getting laid off, and then I see somebody come up right behind and get some contract. Business does business. You never know what's behind the goal of a business per se. What you do know is the work that you put in. If you're smart enough, what value comes with that work. And then at the same time, you also pride yourself in being very, very reasonable. I haven't, and I'm not going to talk about my contract negotiations with ESPN. They are ongoing. I think the talks have been very pleasant. I think we're making progress. We'll see what happens. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, I've got decisions to make because I got a future to think about. But I'm not going to sit up here like a baby and a child, understanding the world of business and what it entails, and whine and moan about whatever. At the end of the day, here's what it comes down to. The industry has changed. The people who are not paying attention to the changes that have taken place are going to get lost in the shuffle. It's not what it used to be. There was a metamorphosis that kicked in, a change that took place when I was in the newspaper industry and they were transitioning to .com, social media. The advent of social media came about. You know, you had people that were starting podcasts. Newspapers was getting left by the wayside, and you had newspaper journalists whining about the industry. Well, are you blind? You are reporters. You see what they're doing. You got to come up with something else, okay? Sports radio, that had grown, that had blown up. But podcasting came about. Why? Because people didn't want to punch a clock and have to watch a show or listen to the show at one specific time. They wanted the flexibility of being able to call up your content whenever they wanted to, et cetera, et cetera. You saw how the business was changing. What are you going to do about it? Same thing with television. Now we've got streaming. Linear television is supposed to be dying. I will remind you, linear content is not. Linear television is. That means somebody doesn't want to have to buy a big-ass TV to watch it in their house when they get home from work or whenever. They want to be able to watch it on their phone. They want to be able to watch it on their iPad. They want to be able to watch it on their laptop. This is what they want to be able to do. You have to know these things. In the process of knowing these things, you build an audience. You build content. You're a content provider. You're doing all of these things. And then the people that you worked for benefit from that. They master how to monetize it, or at least they hope to. And they go about the business of putting it out there so folks can get paid. And then when it's your time, you're supposed to act oblivious and ignorant to all of that and say, let me think about everybody else but myself, when I've been working all of these years and didn't ask for, and my contract wasn't up. I didn't ask for a contract extension. I didn't ask somebody to rip it up or whatever. My deal was there. You're locked in until June 2025. I've honored my word. I showed up. I performed. I did what I needed to do. And so now a negotiation takes place, and hopefully the two sides can come to an accord. And if we can't, we can't. But business is business. I harbor no animosity whatsoever. All I ask for anybody out there that's looking at me is to understand, just like a business has a right to look out for its business, Stephen A. has a right to look out for Stephen A.'s business.
Without getting into the particulars, it seems like you want to stay at ESPN, right? That would be your preference?
In a perfect world, Jimmy Pitaro is a great boss. He's a good man. It's hard when you look at the world and how divisive it is, how sleazy it can be, and what have you, to run across a man that you genuinely like. You know, that's how I feel about Jimmy Pitaro. Bob Iger's another level. I revere this man. I idolize Bob Iger. I've known him for years, and I think that he's a marvelous leader. And what he has done for the Disney family, to be in-house and to see the obstacles and to see how he's maneuvered his way through that terrain for that 16-year run before he retired, and what he had to facilitate cleaning up once he got back, despite so many reports and troubles and all of this other stuff. To have a relationship with somebody like that where you see him give you advice about you personally, about your personal affairs, about things that have nothing to do with the job, but it's going to help you grow as a human being and as a man. I can't say enough about him. You don't have that every day. And so on that level, when I think about that, I think about a Burke Magnus, who I've got a good relationship with, the Dave Roberts, who I've had a long-standing relationship with. Yeah, on that level, you don't want to leave when you have people like that. But they are fully aware that while I have a desire to still do some of the things that I do, I also have a desire to do my own thing. And I'm not going to let anything stop me.
So if you, in this new deal, you would not want to fold the stuff you're doing outside into the contract. You want to make sure that you have the right to do stuff outside.
Absolutely. And I will not do anything that disallows that.
And is there anything you're not doing now that you want to add to the plate?
No, I mean, it's not so much that. What happens is that once you have a taste of success, everybody wants a piece of the action. And, well, there's pieces of the action I can't have as somebody that's worked there, even though I've contributed to the success of what they have. So just like they achieved the success on their own based on their creative and what they built, what I've created and what I'm building, I want for myself.
Right.
And so, you know, that's really what it is. Again, it's the talks are going well. There's nothing bad going on, despite the reports and stuff like that. I'm alarmed at how ignorant folks are.
I don't think the reports are that things are going bad. The reports are that, you know,
well, they
offer X, you want Y.
Well, they've been wrong. How about that? Okay, they've been wrong. But I let them do that, and because I like to see, as a journalist, I've been a journalist. Yes, I'm a personality and all this stuff, but New York Daily News, Philadelphia Inquirer, I've been a journalist for nearly 30 years.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of people that write that are still in those press boxes when I was there. I know who they are. I know how they think. I know what they're going to say before they say it. I know who they're talking to. I know who leaks information to them. I know this, okay? They're not fooling the damn soul. I just let them do it because I want to see who's going to. Because I like to see who's going to have the audacity to smile in my face when you say something. I had somebody, I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to put him on Front Street, but I had somebody write a story about a colleague of mine and something negative that they had to say about me. And that bastard was in front of my face.
I assume we're talking about Pat McAfee.
No, not at all. I swear to you, I said, I'm not talking about my colleague. I'm talking about the reporter.
No, I know. I thought the story was about.
No, it's nothing about Pat McAfee.
Got it.
And so that reporter was in front of my face 3 weeks earlier, interviewing us when we had the town hall in front of the media. Never mentioned a word about what the person said. Not a syllable. And then I read the paper, and I'm like, you ain't asked me about this. But you took that quote, and you ran with that. You know, you watch stuff, and I'm in the business, and I've been in the business for years, so I know this. And when you are doing certain things that I think cross the line of ethics and what have you, I like to know who you are. I'm not going to do anything to you. You're not worth it. But I like to know who you are, just so I can look at you. And when you look at me, you'll know, I know who you are. That's all.
You mentioned being a journalist. You've probably interviewed just about every famous athlete on the planet, at least in certain sports. Is there one that you find the most challenging to interview?
The most challenging interview? I don't find anybody the most challenging interview as long as they know how to talk. As long as you know how to talk, I feel I can interview a cockroach, to be honest with you. I can talk to anybody.
Is there someone you haven't interviewed that you want to?
I want to interview Barack Obama. I want to interview Barack Obama. I want him to sit in front of me and defend some of the people he defends to my face. I want him to take some of the positions that he takes. I'm not going to say I don't want to interview Donald Trump. It would be fascinating because, you see, how can you say I'm going to be respectful, but in the same breath, I'm not going to let you BS? You're not going to get away with it.
Right.
I would try that. He's not going to be able to look at me and say, you didn't say hello. How are you? Before you ask me these questions like he did at the National Association of Black Journalists. He's not going to be able to do that. But definitely him. That would come to mind. And, you know, that's really about it.
Politicians.
I'd love to interview Benjamin Netanyahu. Wouldn't bother me at all. I'd love to do that interview. I would love that. Ted Cruz is crazy in his own way. But I'd like to talk to him because he speaks his mind, you know. And so I like talking to folks who are unafraid to say what they feel based on their facts. That doesn't bother me. I'm bothered if you ignore the facts. I'm bothered if you do that on purpose. But if you believe something and you have the facts that back up your belief, let the people decide. Tell them what it is and let them decide.
So you mentioned Obama. What are the things that you want to see him stand up behind?
No, I just think that, you know, Barack Obama is a person, obviously, profound respect. First black president of the United States of America, wonderful first family, best first lady I've ever seen, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, when I think, I'm a centrist, and I think the world is cyclical. Sometimes you need certain policies, sometimes you need certain others. And when people are dogged in their beliefs and they're one-sided and there's not much room to leverage, to budge, I don't know how beneficial that is for us as a society. Think if we as American citizens and we're human beings were that way. This is what I believe. There's not a damn thing you can do to change my mind. This is what I believe. I'm not changing. Where are we going? I'm not budging either. Where are we going? I think one of the problems when we look at the world of politics today is that they're not doing any work. All their work is during the campaign. Once they're in office, they don't have to do a damn thing. Do you realize they don't even have to read policy? And they can literally just say, I'm going to vote along with the side that I'm on. We got to march lockstep with one another. We're Republican, we're Democrat. This is where we got to vote. Really, that's what they're doing.
Well, that's a politics issue. That doesn't strike me as an Obama issue.
No, that's not Obama. That's not an Obama issue. I'm not saying that is. I'm saying talking to him about a climate and a culture that some people would credit him towards. Some people would tell you his presidency caused just as much as divisiveness as anybody else. I don't believe that. But I'm fascinated by people who believe that and why, and I'm fascinated as to what he would have to say about that.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
I think I did.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
You familiar with the stock market?
Not really. I have financial people about that. I know I monitor my money. I know that.
Are you familiar with the concept of buying, selling, and holding a stock?
Yeah.
You can buy something if you believe in it. You sell it if you don't. You hold it if you're
Yes.
Can I give you some sports and see where you're at on them?
Sure, we could do that.
Okay. Let's do 3 older sports: baseball, boxing, and golf.
Buying or selling?
Buy, sell, hold, those 3.
I would sell boxing. I don't like what I'm seeing. The promoters have ruined the sport. They need somebody like Dana White overseeing the sport so you can give us the fights we want to see when we want to see them, as opposed to dudes being able to avoid one another because they might get knocked out, and then obviously it will compromise their revenue generating ability. But we also need to do a better job of taking care of the boxers. I think Capitol Hill has to get involved in that regard. I would tell you that I'm buying baseball.
Having a good year.
And well, it's not just that. I think the rules changes, the pitch count, the shifting, the clock, the game has sped up. We're seeing more athleticism that's been incorporated in the sport of baseball. I think that's going to contribute to diversifying the sport. Now, it was only about 6% black a couple of years ago. It's crawling up, but I think that you'll see more athleticism coming into the sport. I think that's important. And what was the other sport?
Golf. You're holding golf.
Golf. Look, I know Tiger Woods was there. And I understand it's a meritocracy and you got to be able to play. But there is nothing about golf that says to me I'm invited. Nothing. I mean, it costs a boatload of money to be a member of a club. You understand? You got to buy your golf clubs. You understand what I'm saying? You're losing balls all the time. They ain't cheap. You got to have a caddy. You got to have a cart because you're not trying to walk 18 holes. And, it's at a country club that, the only time you really see black folks there is they're working. That's what it was for a long period of time. And I understand that Tiger Woods contributed to diversifying it to some degree, but there's just nothing about the sport, from the people who cover it, the people who talk about it, the people who participate in it. There is nothing about the sport that says to me, black folks, come on in. I don't see that in golf.
Yeah.
So I'd sell that.
Okay. Selling 2, 1 buy. Good. 3 sports on the rise: UFC, WNBA, soccer.
Well, soccer's international. Soccer's not going anywhere. It's on the rise in America. Yeah, Messi in Florida, that's nice. But the bottom line is, as long as the NFL exists here, you're behind the curve because, football is football in America. NFL, it ain't soccer. So I would say that it's on the rise. It is what it is globally. On America, it's an incremental rise. I think that when you look at the UFC, I think the UFC is very popular. I think Dana White has done a marvelous job in growing the sport the way that he has. It's great to see great matches. I just think they got to get more, and it won't happen per se, but I think that something that would go a long way towards elevating the success of the UFC is to incorporate the knockout even more. America loves knockouts.
Yeah, when you watch him,
we don't want to see submissions.
Yeah.
We don't want to see guillotine chokeholds. Yeah, all right, that's fine. Wow, okay, but you don't want to see somebody. I saw John Bones Jones get into the octagon one day. He maneuvered left, maneuvered right, grabbed this guy by both of his arms and choked him with his own arms. It was over in 45 seconds. That's not box office. But Conor McGregor knocking out Aldo in 13 seconds, you still saw that knockout.
Yeah.
So it's what Americans appeal to. So I would say that's going to still be on the rise. Plus, boxing has helped the rise of the UFC because of the organizational structure that Dana White has made sure to ensure, or rather was incorporated, and I think that helps them. Now, what was your third sport?
WNBA.
Definitely on the rise. I think the women have done a marvelous job, but we're not going to run from the elephant in the room. Caitlin Clark, you better recognize. Average 17,000 in attendance at home, 15,000 on the road. Attendance increased by 319%. Merchandise sales up like 450%. Not most, not all, but there was some jealousy. There was some resentment. and it's very, very understandable. You've got sisters that were in the WNBA that toiled through that terrain, that bust their tails to be the best that they could possibly be and uplift the sport, and couldn't get the notoriety, couldn't get the television coverage, couldn't get the media coverage, couldn't get the sponsors and advertisers bought in, couldn't do any of that. Well, you know something? Caitlin Clark changed all of that. 2 weeks on the job, she had him on chartered flights. 2 weeks, okay? Attendance soared, WNBA draft ratings, opening night ratings on ABC, et cetera, et cetera. A rising tide lifts all boats. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were champions. But when Michael Jordan came along, they said, yo, this brother different. And we gonna ride this wave because that benefits us all. I think that a lot of the ladies with the WNBA were slow to get to that point, and that's what hurt them. But I think they're here. The ratings for the playoffs have been great, but nothing like Caitlin Clark. She is a galvanizing force of nature to be reckoned with, and I think that she has done wonders and will continue to do wonders for women's basketball. I think it was stupid for Team USA to not have her on the team, because you should have had her on there, because she would have blew up the popularity of the sport globally, which would have assisted in the sport growing even more. And I think that that was a missed opportunity, but I don't think it's going away. It shouldn't go away. And I think the WNBA is going to be here to stay.
Okay, we'll end on NBA then. What's your finals prediction?
Well, right now, I think the favorite has to be the Boston Celtics. I would tell you that a lot of people are talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're the best team in the West. I find it hard to count out Jokic in Denver. I just find that very, very difficult to believe, and I'm not sleeping on Minnesota with Julius Randle, Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, etc. If I had to pick, I would tell you it would be Boston versus the Denver Nuggets. But I have a license to be fluid.
You got a long ways to go.
Yeah, license to be fluid.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple things before we go. I know everyone's ready to have some fun. Thanks again to Stephen A. I want to thank our sponsors, presenting sponsor, AWS, participating sponsor, Disney Entertainment, and our entertainment partners again, YouTube Foundry, Letterboxd, Empire, Creative Futures Collective. Empire is providing a special performance tonight that we'll get to in a second. I want to thank all the team that worked on this. I get to stand up here and have fun, but there's a whole army back there making this thing work like a charm. And yeah, let's go outside. Let's have some good food. Let's have some drinks. There's some Letterboxd, and there'll be performances from from 310 Baby, courtesy of Empire, and Jay Wood. Thanks so much, everybody.